Hey, everybody, welcome back to another edition of the OverBOTCH podcast. The Overwatch League podcast, where a couple of amateurs sit around and wax philosophic, usually end up talking philosophmoric about our favorite league from one of our favorite games, the Overwatch League. And normally I'm joined by Plexmatic, who is here with us, and our friend Great Root Bear Richard, who will be with us later, but in lieu of him, we've decided to upgrade. Sorry, Richard.
Wow.
And we've got our. This is what we do, and he's just wait. The Toronto Defiant is going to beat the Outlaws later, and then I'm going to have to say something ridiculous too. So this all jogs back and forth, and then we're all going to crap on the mayhem, and then Plex is just going to eat our lunch one of these days. So it all gets traded back and forth, folks. But today, a special guest who will be joining us, Patrick Dane, who is a games guide writer for Tech Radar, correct? In the UK?
I'm an editor, actually.
Editor.
Yeah, I work for Tech Radar Gaming over here, and I run their guide section and stuff. So yeah, but I've been in the world of games journalism for a decade in September, which is scary. And I've basically been following the Overwatch League since it started and before. So yeah, I've been around.
Any particular team?
Yeah, unfortunately, you're on the podcast with two Houston Outlaws guys.
Boom! Backup has arrived.
I've been a day one.
As long as it's not Toronto Defiant, I'm a happy bunny.
I've been a day one
because then Rich would not let that down.
I've been through all the pain. I've been there every step of the way.
All right, so really quick, well, and this is a great bridge, great intro to you, and it's a great bridge. So, talking to you, you've told me. So you're in England, but you spent a good amount of time over here in the States as well, correct?
Yeah, so I was born in London, but I moved over to the States before I was like 1.
Right.
And then I lived in the States until I was about 10-ish. And then I moved back. And then in 2019, I moved back to Texas to go work in a Home Depot of all things. And then I was there for about 6 months. And then I was like, all right, I miss London. So I went back, and then I continued. There was like a break there when I was like, I need to go like find myself out in the woods, which was the same as going to Austin and working in a Home Depot for 6 months. But
was that literally the reason you moved across an ocean? Like, damn, Home Depot in Austin, Texas.
Man, I love want to go work in a Home Depot. No, it was like I was very tired at the time, and I had like, and I was kind of like, I don't know what to do, kind of didn't know where to go with next. And then at some point, my dad was just like, oh, do you want to go live with your sister in Austin? I was like, yeah, all right. So I just did that. And then I had to find a job for a bit. And it was a good time. It was a good like break. And then I came back, and I've been doing super well since. So I made the right choices, but it was definitely like one of those weird, nice stories that I have. It's like, oh yeah. And then I had that 6 months where I worked in a Home Depot in the middle of Texas.
I think we all got those stories. And as we're just getting the show started, our loving companion has found us. Let's bring him in.
Hello.
And today he changes his name. He is the Great Root Bear, but today he is the Sad Oilers Bear. Which I don't follow hockey. I can only surmise what this means for you.
Well,
I'm sorry ahead of time.
What I can tell from social media, it's not been a good week.
It's not been a good weekend.
It has not been a good week.
We'll just leave it there.
But great to meet you, Patrick. How are you?
I'm good. I'm hanging in,
Yeah.
Like I said, I work more in general games and stuff. So big week of big announcements of all sorts coming out in games and stuff. So lots of planning around that. But otherwise, I'm pretty good.
And Richard, we're outnumbered. He's an Outlaws fan.
I've got backup today, buddy. I needed an audience. I needed an audience for your.
I feel like this is a plant. This is a plant.
Yeah, I've been
a work, brother.
I've been doing it. It's
always
day one since they were announced. So it's been a tumultuous couple years.
Right?
Yeah.
But you know what? Good highs and lows, though. It's okay.
Yeah. I haven't jumped shit yet, and I think that means something.
I mean, never forget that Defiant's very first game in the Overwatch League was a reverse sweep of the Houston Outlaws.
I mean, I did forget that. So
oh well, now you know again. And now it's back.
Been reminded. So I do got to ask though, because that is interesting to me, because that was going to be my follow-up question before Home Depot. And so how does an English Overwatch League fan decide? You know what? The Houston, Texas
Mhm.
team. That's the one I'm going for. Like, what brought that about?
So I do have ties to Texas. Like I said, I spent some time in
Sure.
Austin, but I actually grew up around Houston when I was younger. So that was like an easier part of it. Also, I'd heard coming into the Overwatch League, or not heard. I knew that GC Busan and Kongdu Panthera were coming together, and it was going to be this crazy super team, and they were going to be London. And I was like, oh, I love London, but I also like to root for underdogs. So I was like, I'm not going to root for this amazing
Staying right
team.
here.
I'm gonna root for this other crazy Western team made up of Jake and stuff. And I've been
Muma.
along for the right sense. And also just black and green just look good together, don't they?
It is a cool color palette. I will say that. Absolutely. So there you go, folks. See, all of this is it's global, baby. It's global. But yeah, no, without further ado, I mean, we were talking about it a little bit before the broadcast started. We had a really cool, those who didn't see, we had a really awesome opportunity to co-stream, because that's one of the new things that the Overwatch League has started this year, is allowing public or outside co-streams from different individuals and creators and stuff like that. And we were lucky enough to have gotten chosen for the tournament weekend, which was actually extra fun, even better than a regular season weekend. So that was a lot of fun. So we got to watch a ton of these matches live on stream with many of you who have come back to join us today, which is cool. And hopefully you've subscribed to the podcast and all that stuff. So, I mean, without further ado, I mean, the first topic of the day is basically just let's recap what happened. I mean, the Glads, we got to start at the top. The Glads looked ridiculous. I mean, we talked about, they went all the way through, never dropped down to the lower bracket. And not only that, one of the most fun stats, they only dropped one map the entire weekend.
I believe that was to the Dallas Fuel.
Yes, 3-1 to Fuel, 14 maps over the course of 4 or 5 matches, and they lost one.
Yeah,
it was disgusting.
Some of the most incredible teams.
Oh yeah,
in NA and everything like that. It was wild. So just, I mean, Patrick, you're our guest here today. So like, what were some of your takeaways from the weekend, specifically the Glads?
The Glads. I mean, like, I think I have always, I mean, I was kind of on this train of like, this team's going to implode at some point, because they always kind of do. And that's like, the Sadiators is kind of a meme. And like, that's kind of, they always get so close and then they just kind of fall apart. And then I was just like waiting, and then it never came. And even when like Fuel even then we were 3-0 up against Fuel, it's like, I don't know, man. Like, this team, like, they've recently got reverse swept like twice, So I was like, I don't know, but that team very clearly, at least, and I actually think they really, really benefited from being on LAN. I think that team has benefited really, really well being there in person and playing in that kind of environment. And I think the storyline that is just like so easy to like love and care for was just like the transformation and like the blooming of Patapan. I watched him back in VCT Masters over when he was in Valorant, which was less than like 6 months ago. It was maybe just it was like
very recently.
Yeah, and he would, and like for a Philippines team over there, like, they did amazingly well there, and he really stood out there. So like, to then come back to Overwatch, to then like come back and win stage 1, and he definitely started off rocky, but like during this tournament, just seeing him grow into this like confident player, and seeing you could just like tell how much it meant for him at the end, like that it all did work out in the end, and like it was just like such an easy story to root for. It was just like that, seeing Patty like really come into his own.
Yeah, it's like, one thing I picked up on was just how versatile that roster is. Like, that starting lineup of Patapan, Kevster, Reiner, Shu, Funny Astro. Between the 5 of them, they've got pretty much all the meta comps down, and then they can still, if need be, bring in Skewed, Arns, which is a scary prospect, in space as well.
Yeah, when those are your backups, when those are your like bench players, like just listen to those backups. Like,
that's like Golden State Warriors bench deep. It was ridiculous. The ability to flex and and you had said it when we were watching the games. Everything that it's like they could just flex, and what was amazing was they could swap to anything. But what I loved was none of those permutations ever felt random or unpracticed or something new. Everyone knew their role and what to do. There was a system for each combination, and it was the freakiest thing to watch, to see that happen in real time, because there were some. I mean, I think it was the second last game that we were watching with them, but it was like they just kept flipping, or it was like the second last map, they just kept flipping, and it was like I couldn't keep up with who was doing what, other than grotesque purple punishment was raining down.
Yeah, it was Circuit Royale, if I remember correctly.
That's what it was, Circuit Royale. I was like, what is happening? But that, to me, it was prime time Overwatch. It was that the true spirit of the game sort of brought to life, and we were seeing it in a top flight level of competition.
I mean, it's crazy to think that Arndt, one of the standout players for 2020, probably one of the scariest snipers in the league since Sire Player, is on the bench.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, if you've got that kind of player to come in, how strong's your front line?
Like that's exactly what I'm saying. If those are your backups, like you just listen again. So like Space, everyone, I think before Reiner was announced, everyone's like, well, like I don't know, Space isn't a main tank, but he's so good. Maybe he'll be learning main tank, and he's going to be their guy. Clearly, because he's one of the faces of that org, kind of in a way. And Reiner has just come in and dominated as one of the most versatile tanks out there. And we talked about this a lot. How what Richard was just pointing out was just like none of it. It wasn't only just like, hey, we can switch, but it wasn't just this fluttery, panicky switch, which we saw a lot of, like, whether it was panic tactics or panic hero switches, be like, I don't know, let me try this guy, let me try this one. It was like, all right, they're gonna go this, fine, we'll do that. It seemed like a measured response. They're gonna go brawl, or this, we're gonna go brawl. They're gonna go rush, we'll go rush, or we'll do vice versa, so on. It was calculated.
Yeah, it's like, because a lot of teams in the league will focus on one, maybe two compositions, or they'll have the base composition plus a couple of variations of it. It's like, say, hey, with Florida Mayhem, they'll have the Winston comp, but they'll have Checkmate learn both trades from Genji just in case. It's like there's one subtle variation. Gladiators are like, okay, we'll just completely switch the composition.
Okay, yeah, within one map.
Yeah.
But nothing ever felt like, hey, let's try this. It's let's do this. And there's a huge difference between trying and doing. And it's like the Glads it was nuts. Plus, I love, like, Reiner, his pick for the league, where he's just like grinding his fist.
Oh, you love
smash your face in.
You have like, you love this picture.
It is such a good picture because he's like, hey, what's up? I'm gonna break your face hole. And I'm like, it is so good. It's so good. It's done so well. But and Patapan was just, it was wild because Kevster was just laying down. He was ridiculous. Kevster's play was unreal. But what I thought was wild was, there were those moments when, like, Patapan, I think it was at Route 66, he's just hanging out on top of a building and just like chipping apart everybody. And it was just like someone stepping on a carton of goldfish crackers. Like, this is just somebody. It was just so precise, and everything about and it was amazing because they never were subject to another team's pace. They dictated every game.
Yes.
And they never got greedy. They knew how to pull back, it was on that final push map. They knew when not to chase, come back. They because again, you're playing the game as a system, and I love that. There was no cheap tricks or attempted bait. They just stuck to a process and
trusted it.
And they trusted it. They actually genuinely trusted the process. And like, they made teams who should have looked better look awful.
Especially, I mean, we had just watched Dallas stomp pretty good on Atlanta in that, in that semifinal. And especially that they have the record for the fastest push completion in the league over on Atlanta. It was just mind-blowing that they just basically didn't stop moving save for like one fight. And then, so that's why, like, when I made my prediction, I was like, hot damn, I think Dallas have it. But then they made them look like chumps.
Look what happened on the Colosseo map, right? Like, that was the thing. Because we were saying, was their speed there a result of them being good, or Atlanta making really weird decisions and playing very poorly? That Widow stayed on for way too long. You know what I mean?
God,
way too long.
Widow was an awful choice.
And But the thing is, the way they handled them and they outpaced them, outpositioned, and it was amazing. It was outskilling and outthinking. It was both sides of the equation, and it was incredible. That's why I didn't think they should have gone on the Coliseum map, because the first thing you'll do is try the same tricks. It's always a bad habit. Everybody has this, right? You just did really well. Let's do it again.
Yeah, we did it once. We can do it 6 more times. I bet.
Yeah. And it's it'll be interesting. I want to see how the Glads hold out though for the entire next stage, because those first round of patches are going to come through. That's going to change a little bit, but not so much on their side. I'm still kind of reeling from Hangzhou flaming out, but the Dynasty did do well as I thought they would.
Yes,
I didn't. I underestimated how well they would do, but they owned it.
I'm obviously not a reporter and all the rest of it, but everyone goes on about playoffs profit, and he definitely turned. One thing I will point out: Smurf. He actually started to look comfortable on Zarya.
Yeah, no, I know a lot of people had questions, but a lot of people were like, I don't know, and then he's really turned up.
Yeah, I was the one crying out, "Play Winston," and yet, and I will say this about Fusion: I think their map picks were the wrong ones.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that. I think you might be right,
because every map they picked lent into Smurf's strengths. And I was thinking to myself, take him to Circuit Royale for escort. You have to force him onto an off tank, bring Fury in. And I'd think to myself, yeah. You picked into the strengths of the Seoul Dynasty.
Yeah, maybe not the best choice.
So to me, they basically lost on the map picks as opposed to actually in the match.
Sure. I can see that.
If Patrick can speak to that or anything like that.
Yeah, did you watch any APAC, Pat?
I did. So I'm actually, on top of being a Outlaws fan, I've also, historically, at least APAC, I've always supported Seoul. And, Prophet is, alongside Dante, probably like my favorite player of all time. This conversation keeps coming up. It's like, is he the GOAT? Is he the GOAT? It's like, and for me, it's like, there's not even a question. Like, of course he's been so good for so long. It's like not even a comparison. But like, and I think that was the thing that resonated me with most with this is like, because that Seoul team has really started, because this was the 5th time that Fusion had become second in something, which is very sad for that team. And one of my best friends is a Fusion fan, and we were texting during that match, and I was like, I'm sorry, man, but but at the same time, like, I think the other side of that coin, which I think was kind of ignored during that, is that Seoul had like never been to besides literally the grand final of 2020, like they'd never been to, like, they've never won anything, like they've never done anything really. So like, seeing that there's that moment when it was against the Dragons. He was like much more subdued when they won it, but it was against the Dragons where like Prophet just like, I think it was Lighthouse on Ilios, and like they've lost the point. There's like 2 players, I think like they lost like both their supports or something, or like a tank and a support or something, and then like Fusion are like fine, and then Prophet just comes in and he sticks 2 kind of off screen, and I think he kills like a Zarya and a Lucio, and then literally the entire team just like the game just like flips on its head completely at that point. And then like after they win that map, like he literally just like breaking down crying, because I think that like the Dragons had been so strong in that region for so long, and I don't think Seoul had like literally ever beaten like that iteration of that team. And then he had like a real like moment, and like Prophet had always been thought of as like this like kind of like stoic, just like amazing player who doesn't like really show tons of emotion, but like kind of seeing him have that moment was like actually like emotionally gratifying, because I was like, oh man, it's like so cool to like see him actually like have that moment where he's like, we achieved this, we did this, and then they did go on to continue to win it and stuff. And I think that a lot of that also goes down to Smurf, who I do think is one of the best tanks who's ever done it. And like I know that people kind of doubted like, could he do all these things? Like I never doubted. Like that guy is a superstar, and like he's one of the best tanks in the entire world. I was a bit worried that like he might fall to the Seoul system, because the Seoul system has failed many times. But I think this team finally is moving in the right place. And obviously they're being coached by Toby now, who's knows his way around Overwatch. And I think it's very rare to have a coach with that kind of playing experience. And I think that that's really, really valuable to that team. Obviously they started quite slow, but then like I think they just grown strength to strength. And like, I mean, there's a part of me that thinks it's probably turned out best for them, but there's still like a part of me is like, man, I would have loved to have seen Jonak on this team, like.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
of course.
You say that. I mean, I've always been advocating that Creative is one of the most underrated supports in the league, and he shone big time on the Ana.
He showed up.
Any other hero that he was called upon. He's one of those sort of stable players, and that he doesn't do anything flashy. He just keeps the lights on, make sure everybody else can do their thing, and Soul and Smurf especially benefit from that.
Oh
it's
yeah,
like
absolutely. And I love it's the we talked about the script writers had it in the clouds for some of this stuff this weekend, and the story with not only fun. Both finals ended up being 4-0 sweep, which is pretty wild.
Yes.
When you're supposed to, you have two of the top teams is ideally at the end there. So like the fact that both teams won so convincingly is kind of interesting and very cool, and makes you wonder, down the line, either mid-season or grand finals, are we going to see something like a Soul Glads like that? It'll be potentially very, very cool. But also, then they both had like emotional subplots. You had Patafan over on LA, and then I bring up this picture because of the Gen G properties, they've done pretty well in a lot of things, but Soul has just never, you pointed to it earlier, never gotten anything. And so you saw that emotion on their face when they won, and you're like, well, it's like stage 1 final. Like, what's the big deal? It's because they've struggled to do that with, and I can only imagine what it feels like to be like the team as part of an org is like, when are you guys gonna win something? And especially when you have the talent, like it's that frustrating. God,
well, especially when your name is Dynasty, you gotta win at least one.
I mean, and especially when your name is Soul, and
you're the Soul Dynasty, and you got nothing.
Yeah, for sure. And like it's seeing, and like I think there was like a real like kind of narrative, and I think this will go to like the potential of Fusion going forward, which is like this was very much like an old guard versus like the new guard matchup, and like. I think a lot of people look at the Soul roster and think that like a lot of these guys are probably past their best because like literally just from like law of averages, most players have like 2 good seasons and then they kind of like they stick around for a bit, but they're like all right. And I think a lot of people kind of like put like Soul in that thing. So it's really, really cool to like see them actually elevate that, be like, no, we are still like some of the best players in the entire league. And like Prophet being able to be like, he's done this since 27, like since the game has started essentially into like 2016 and remain at this level is absurd. And like seeing and like I think that Fusion roster will be fine. Like they're obviously exceedingly talented, and I think that this is going to be like a real like rallying like experience for them. Like this is in some ways like this could benefit Fuel in the long run because it's a really harrowing experience that they're gonna have to drag themselves up as, and like that's a really strong foundation for like rookies to base themselves on, and they can be excited because they played so well during the entire like Kickoff Clash.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean that's the other. That was the other. The flip side of the storyline coin was. I believe Carpe. I believe he's in kind of a similar situation. He's been here forever. I don't think he doesn't have a title to his name. And I'm like, this is the opportunity. Here he is. He's the vet on a team of rookies, and came so close. But like you said, I hope it because they have that talent. MN3, Zest, Fixa, all had some incredible pop off. Dude, I think it was Zest he was carrying the team in like he was trying to deadlift, and like there were a couple of those maps where it was like he was getting 4Ks and all this stuff and just trying, but they just didn't click everything together where they needed to. But so like I think Pat, I think you're right. I think they'll be okay going forward. It's just going to be a little bit of a regroup. But I mean, hey, you made it to that final. That doesn't mean nothing. You know what I mean? I hope people and fans alike don't take that to.
I think there's like a lot of history there that's like hard for the fans because obviously they've been through so many second places. But like I think you have to look at it like this is a new team. Like that's like the culture of the team. But like this is a whole new team. Like this is basically a new team who came second in their first showing for the most part, bar like Carpe, right? So like I think you got to look at it in terms of that. Even if it is like the 5th time the Orgs come second, they will eventually. I mean. I actually don't know if I want to commit to that statement. I was going to say they're definitely going to win.
Commit.
No, I don't know if I actually want to commit to that.
Full send.
I'm worried that the Dragons will get like because I think they have internet issues. I think they're going to get back to being amazing, and so they're still amazing. So I think there's a lot of competition, but they definitely have a very good shot at winning a stage this year. I'll go to that.
Yeah.
No, I get that. So go ahead, Plex.
Yeah, I was going to say because Belos Ria, anytime I see him play, has looked really good.
Yeah,
I mean, he takes some resources, but keep him up, and he'll just cause chaos in any backline.
Oh yeah.
Then you got Zest to follow him through. MN3, he from long range. So they've got a scary roster this year. It's just a case of they need time to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And if they keep on this sort of consistency, I can see them getting to the playoffs pretty easily.
And like,
you need to get that consistency really well.
One kind of final thing between like both Gladiators and Soul and stuff. I think one of the defining thing is that, like I think we mentioned earlier, is that versatility. They are teams who can switch around. Like obviously Prophet has like an enormous talent pool. Smurf, as he's shown, is not just a wisdom one trick. He can play Zarya, he can play all these things. Gladiators are so versatile as well. And I think like a lot of teams, I think most teams actually basically only have one or two looks and they're pretty well telegraphed, and I think that's really what brought these teams like over the edge, right? Is they have this unpredictability and ability to change on a dime that just like basically no other team has right now,
Yeah,
that's 100%.
You look at Dallas Fuel with their Reaper composition. I was thinking to myself when I watched it, like, what's the best way to describe that composition with the Reaper Zarya? And I thought to myself, Patrick might understand this a bit better. Like in football, when teams use the false nine, where they don't have a out-and-out striker, they have an extra attacking midfielder, and they'll sort of sit deep and all the rest of it. That's, to me, was what Edison was. He was that false nine. So essentially, comparing it to Overwatch, he was a false tank. So the idea was he'd go in, get the charge, and then Humby would take over, and then they just rotate between them.
Yeah, and like I think that Fuel were found out a little bit, and like I think that having Zarya is like exceptional, but they committed exceptionally hard to it in a way that like Dallas Gladiator showed that they were just like way more versatile and stuff. And like I think that's, like I say, I think that's basically true of more or less every team that didn't win. I think a lot of the teams are suffering from that kind of inflexibility.
Absolutely. I think that is one of the most telling things to me for this tournament. But flipping back to APAC for a second, I'm going to go to Richard. So then, again, we talked about our predictions. If we didn't pick them to win, we picked them to be in the finals or whatever. What happened to Hangzhou?
They blew it.
Right? Choked?
They just choked.
Yeah.
Honestly, like I don't really have anything else. Like they should have.
They had all the talent. They did. Yeah. They were doing so well heading into it. I'm at a loss. Because I don't think I was able to catch every single APAC.
No, I went through the highlights and I watched it. It was really early, but they just played poorly. Like it's just one of those cases. They just didn't play well. They weren't going through like a massive bracket run. This was not the same situation that you faced in NA, where, it's 4 teams. Like, guys, like, it's sort of like, Shock kind of, they kind of blew it, but also like the Glads were at least in NA they were substantially better. But honestly, I was just surprised with Hangzhou. It's one of those cases where I think they just had a bad run. It was a bad weekend. It happens. I don't expect them to continue having some of these challenges moving forward. I think they had a bad blip.
Yeah, sure. I think also you have to put it down to experience as well, because they have a lot of rookies on that lineup.
Yeah.
So does Philly.
Yeah,
though
maybe
how quickly
can you get them used
to it?
I have no faith in the Spark roster in the long run, but that's just me.
And what makes you say that? Because we've seen, obviously they had a bit of a run.
They have been very good, and I actually think that like it's like a lot of closeness in APAC. And when I say that, I'm not like trying to disparage them too much, but I don't.
No, disparage them. Disparage more.
I think
we're 100% unbiased here.
I think there's like I think it's very clear that Dragons, Fusion, and Dynasty are like the top 3, and then I do think there's like a tier break, and then then that's where Hangzhou is. And I do think before this tournament, there was a lot of debate of like, are Seoul better than that? And like Philly were super inconsistent. So I think it was like much closer there. Mm-hmm. It wasn't based on much, but I was just like, I think Spark are the worst of like this like sorted out kind of middle part. But like that whole region has been so chaotic, and it's been a real roll of the dice of who wins anything. So it's all based on nothing, but just like, I just think that Spark are going to explode. And it wasn't based on anything smart, and they just did. So I think I just got lucky on that one. But I don't know. that organization has also kind of imploded a couple times. So I think for them, it's like, I have to see them have sustained success for a long time for me to like believe that they have the structures there to be a real contender, which I think you could have had about Seoul Dynasty before this, and like Seoul Dynasty could bomb next round anyways, and that wouldn't be out of character, so
it's the joy of patches as well too. You never know. Never know what you're gonna get. You could get a setup that will just obliterate you.
So totally throw you for a loop. You think you got your stuff nailed down, and then all of a sudden, that hero that has gotten you 18 million kills this season, guess what? Nerfed to the ground, and now you got to adapt.
Can happen.
it can happen, and will probably maybe not that extreme, but probably will to some. And we also have to, and we'll kind of cover this more in the looking forward section. But like at some juncture, probably not for the next tournament, but I imagine we're going to get a new map and a new hero at some point as this beta goes on. I would have to imagine, although even though Sojourn was an option, no, outside of Leave, going for
Aspire one time.
Oh, did Aspire?
Yeah,
pick it.
Okay. Aspire was the man.
Okay, and we did have one Orisa commitment.
From Mag
this weekend from Mag, which was hey, kudos on the boldness, but that was a quick switch off. But
I think it'll be a while though before we see a hero.
Yes,
I mean, we don't even have the game yet, Matt.
Right, I know, but like we didn't have the game, and they let Sojourn be part.
Yeah,
of the
but
league.
that was planned from like 2 years ago.
What? No, I know, but like I'm telling you, a lot of these heroes are probably planned, but I don't know if they're done or whatever. I'm just saying, like, I'm not saying we're gonna have like 5 more by the end of the season, but like I think within the season, we're gonna see at least one more hero added into play. Whether they actually get playtime because they're too new, I don't know.
I don't know.
I think we're gonna see at least one more.
They wouldn't even. I don't even think the full release of the game is gonna be out before the end of the
No,
season.
I don't.
Which means launching a new hero without having any beta testing could get really freaky.
But again, Sojourn.
It'll be like when they put Brig in.
Sojourn had a couple weeks of an alpha, and then they said, "Yep, she's playable in league play. Go for it." I'm just saying, like they've been a little haphazard with it so far.
This is true. No, you make a good point.
Like,
I don't think they've ever cared much for consistency and
Yeah,
stability and sanity in the players. So, or the fans. No, no. You know what? That's fair. I just hope they don't do that thing where they show up right at playoffs and then they're live. What we never want is what happened when, like, oh, hey, here's Brig, and there's actually a secret meta you haven't figured out yet. It's just silly to throw that in for playoffs. Yes, same thing. It's just weird.
Yep.
Just weird.
No, I
Give them
agree
a
with that.
stage,
100%. I 100% agree with that.
I mean,
I'm just saying, I have a feeling like you're 100% right, but it's one of those ones where like come August, like when we're heading into like beta 3 or whatever, like in September, they're like, hey, new hero, everyone's gonna be excited. By the way, league, all good. Go ahead and screw around with it. And either it's gonna be some busted ass hero that everybody picks and it throws everything for a loop, or it's going to be.
I'm guessing that it'll be a tank, but that's.
I would think so, or a support. A lot of people have been pushing support because they want a little bit more. Supports have seen a little bit less change, a little bit less shakeup, and so I know a lot of people are hoping for a support. But
I hope it's a support with some sort of CC control, just because it'll ruin everybody's.
Just make everybody mad.
We already have that. That's
obviously
good. Fair point.
I mean, there's a presentation next week, so on the 16th.
That's right.
Yes, that is right.
It's just the new info on looking ahead. We'll see whatever the hell that means. But before we move on from this, I have 2 questions to ask everybody. So here we're looking at the NA. We'll go around, and who was your who overperformed outside of the Gladiators, who dominated, who did better than you thought, and then who underperformed this tournament for you? Richard, I'll start with you.
So the biggest underperformers were New York because they didn't even show up. They forgot there was a tournament where you had to, play a game and win.
They forgot to plug in their keyboards.
They forgot. I will now. I'm not saying this just because of the bias. I think Toronto really underperformed here. They had potential and they kept making really, really basic schoolyard mistakes. That stupid alley. I have this memory in my head of a Reaper shooting up. You know how the character animation for Reaper looks ridiculous when he's shooting in the sky because he literally looks like this. Like he's running around. So you just see this Reaper doing this, like they're panicking, like they're on fire. They're like,
what do I do? What do I do?
Forever, engraved in the deepest levels of my psyche, because it shows that they had no idea what the hell they were doing. At that point, and then why did they keep doing it? Who in this game makes the decision of, you know what, guys, I like that strat you've been talking about. Maybe we should go for that. Or now hear me out. Or we could go in a small enclosed space, possibly an alleyway, and we'll do it repeatedly and lose 3/4 of our time bank. That's actually why I think they underperformed. It wasn't like the technique, and it wasn't like they were up against Dallas. solid squad, and they held their own. First map on Lijiang, they held their own. They figured out a solution for Sparkle. They chose and they prioritized, but then all of a sudden they got greedy in their play. They started running for kills and they got punished for it. You saw a couple, I think it was a Genji all just chasing, and then you get murked. Like that really drove me nuts.
It was very audible on the code stream.
Didn't we name a room on Circuit Royale, the Hotba room?
Oh yeah, the Hopper room. Yeah, and they were lucky it worked that one time with that cheeky little thing where they drew everyone in, and they just sent the Genji in and the Dasik. It was a big damage multiplier, but that was weird. San Francisco, I thought could have done a little bit better, But honestly, what I think is that, so that's my worst performer. But then, like, honestly, for overperforming, I think the Glads are better than what most people could have anticipated. Okay. I wouldn't believe anybody who would say, "Oh, they knew this would happen." I call BS.
Okay.
I think just the synergy of the team, how they played, they picked their targets, they had ridiculous spacing. But quite frankly, I think the performance of Kevster and Patapan were beyond what anyone could expect, and it was ridiculous.
All right, what about you, Patrick? Underperformer, overperformer?
I'm kind of conflicted on overperformer. I'm actually with Richard on Gladiators. Like, I did not think that they would keep it together the entire way. I think Atlanta has a strong one. I did not rate Atlanta at all coming into this, and they kind of showed up. Although, having said that, I also think they also only won one impressive match, which was against the Shock, which then brings me to my most disappointing, which is probably the Shock, because I had them winning the whole thing. I think that I think that team got kind of found out a little bit. A lot of people, kind of dunk on, Houston showing, which I thought was fine. But, the people forget like how close that second map was on Colosseo between them. Like, you remember that fight that went on for like 20 seconds, like at the end of that first thing. And then it would have been 2-2. And then like, who knows what happens after there? Like, and like after that, I think like Shock did not look particularly impressive. They got 3-0'd by Dallas. They lost 3-1 to Atlanta. Like, they had a really, and like, I thought Washington Justice had a shot at, actually just turning on like they sometimes do. And they almost looked like they were about to do that because Shock 3-2'd them. But I just think that may have just been Shock not looking that great overall. So I think that, again, I think that team might be a little too young at the moment. Still has a little bit of maturing to do to really like clinch the top of like where they definitely absolutely can. Their ceiling is enormous, obviously. But I think that they have every reason to be, to take a look in the mirror after that and be like, okay, we're not the 4-0 best team in the league anymore. But yeah, I think everyone else more or less did. Atlanta, I think, were probably my most surprised to see them get at least like into like the lower final. But at the same time, I also think that they only really had one truly impressive victory, and it was against Shock, who I think underperformed. So maybe I don't think Atlanta.
Fair enough. Plex, what about you? Over under?
Well, overperformed. This is not technically biased, but I'm going to say Florida Mayhem. It's like a lot of people who came into this thinking to themselves, "Oh, they won't do very well." They lost to Atlanta in the first round. That's to be expected because, regardless of seeding, Atlanta is still a really strong team, especially with their depth. But then once they sort of got the ability to show what they could do, they showed that they belonged, so to speak. It's like we saw the confidence in the play against the Justice. And they just looked so happy to be there. We saw the celebrations.
Sure.
Everyone would have expected them to go out in the first week, the first couple of days. But the fact they hung in there, and actually, at times, were doing really well against the Fuel in their losers round.
Mm-hmm.
I thought myself, okay, yes, you didn't go all the way, but you put in a good performance against the Dallas Fuel, one of the favourites to win the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a testament to their quality right there.
Yeah.
Underperformed. I hate to beat the dead horse here, but I'm going to say the Shock. But it's a case of you go into a tournament with the record you have. Like, I think it's like only dropping 2 or 3 mat. It's like they had a positive win record, undefeated, and then they just go into the tournament. And you could tell. I've always brought up how you can play uncomfortable. Well, in sometimes, and you could tell the shock even against the Justice. They were playing uncomfortable. I don't know whether it's the atmosphere, or just the fact that they had much LAN experience or things like that.
Yeah.
So you could tell that this was not the same shock that was in the online environment. It just looked really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that you can't really put your finger on.
And there is something to be said for that. Like, again, I'm sure, like, we talked about this a little bit. Like, there's a lot of obviously a lot of rookies in the league and stuff like that, so they're new to this stage. But these players have probably played like literally on LAN, like on a connected LAN environment in some way, shape, or form, but probably much smaller, localized tournaments or whatever, wherever they're from. But to be on this stage, at least again on the NA side of things, like cameras and announcers and everything, like they're pros. Yeah, but like, especially when you're a 19-year-old, 20-year-old kid, and this is the first time in front of 1,000 people cheering for Dallas and whatever, and your hands shaking a little bit more on that mouse, whether you want to admit it or not. So I think that definitely does play a factor. I'm going to agree with you guys. The underperformer, unfortunately, was the shock. I mean, the fact that they got pushed kind of the limit by Justice, who we know can be good, and but then Atlanta, and then they got diffed by Atlanta, who I think kind of going into this, I was kind of not sure about. They kind of have had a wonky couple of weeks too, and then to see them just get trounced by Atlanta and then whooped up on by the Fuel. So I think like they've got some serious, not rebuilding because like we said, the talent is there, but I think just retooling, rethinking their approach and everything like that. And for me, go ahead.
Yeah, so one thing on the Justice, notice how we didn't see much decay. Like,
which everyone was very confused about.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, Assassin is actually a really good player. There's no doubt about that. It's a case of you made it to the tournament because of Decay and Happy as your damage line. So, and you now decide, like, okay, we're going to use Assassin a bit more. I mean, it worked at times, but it was a case of over time. It's like, where's the sort of difference maker, so to speak? It's like, because that's as sort of polarizing as Decay can be with his playstyle. He can turn a game on its head. And you don't really see that with Assassin. I mean, Happy could do it as well. It's a case of...
On that, did you see that shot that Happy got when he was being juggled by a Winston?
Yes.
Oh my!
I remember that.
I saw it on Twitter, and so like the Dallas head coach shared it, and I was just like, that was absurd. Like obviously, I'm a big fan of Happy, having him been an outlaw last year, but
also
that's
just doming checkmate during a blink and whatever it was.
Oh yeah, that I remember. Oh yeah, But no. So then for me, before we kind of look forward, my overperformers, I'm kind of with you, Plex. Just to me, it's kind of a tie. Call it bias, whatever. With Houston and Florida, and I've said this, I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. They're my teams to watch this year because I think they're in the right. Nobody knew at the beginning because like you bring in some of these rookies and like Florida totally rebuilt, and so it's like what's gonna happen? And then they kind of showed up, and it's like okay, they're these middle teams. I think they're a tier below the upper echelon. They're definitely above the lower bracket. But there's this ability, like on any given week, when things kick together, I think either one of those teams could beat the Fuel, could beat the Shock. I don't know, but Gladiators have now really totally changed my mind. But they can punch up. They have that ability, I think, to reach those levels. And so to me, they're the most fun to watch because like I don't want to see them sink low, but I'm like, because I think they can do it. Whereas like, and I think a lot of people weren't sure if they would make the tournament. A lot of people were talking about Toronto. A lot of people were talking about Washington should be higher seeded going into these in the early days of this season. And even early on, people thought maybe Paris and stuff would be doing a lot better. London, even when they started to get in a little bit of momentum, like, hey, can they maybe punch up? It was a very brief conversation.
I mean, we never Paris. Did we ever say that? I don't know if we
not. I mean, I'm talking.
I think you're just being nice now. Stop it.
I'm talking about the ether.
Stop it.
Pleasing EU Overwatch fans.
Right. We're trying to grow.
Give them the hopium.
Exactly. So I don't know. I was excited to see them compete. I was excited to see them get even moving on just a little bit, getting certain wins and stuff like that. So
no, but I think you make a fair point about London. Like they had some high spots for sure, and it's always look. If you don't have high spots as a team, that's when there's a challenge, like a tremendous challenge. There's all sorts of reasons, like
Vancouver.
Well,
which we're going to get into in the next section.
Okay, so I will hold my comments because you know how I feel about Vancouver.
I'm just going to change my answer 1 second, just because also nobody said an APAC team. I think the overachiever is Seoul Dynasty.
Cool,
that's
fair. Yeah,
I think that I predicted them to win, but that was definitely like a heart, not a head thing, because they had been inconsistent to that point and have a history of kind of obviously playoff profit is a thing, but have a history of kind of being super inconsistent. So to see them actually run the tournament and then win it 4-0 at the end, I think is I don't think anybody would see that coming. So that's actually probably my one.
I think we can all agree underperformers were Shanghai. It's you'd expect them to go all the way, and then
honestly, no, the underperformer for me was Hangzhou.
Yeah, I mean,
they lost twice and we're gone. They didn't even get a peak of. They came in so strong. Everybody Alpha Yi popping off. Oh my God, they're pushing the Dragons. But man, they just went by.
Tell your argument, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
It's you'd expect Shanghai to get there. With Hangzhou, you don't really expect them to be there.
I suppose that's true, but I guess after the early performances they had this year, I kind of did expect it. I'm maybe I didn't expect them to win. That's why I didn't pred them to win. Oh wait, no, I did pred them to win. Holy crap. I thought they were going to win. I expected him at least though to make round 2 or go down to the losers bracket and then win there, go to losers round 2 and then maybe they're out or something. But man, they just went out. I guess it was such a shock to me that it was just that clear cut and it was 3-1, 3-0 out. It wasn't 3-2, 3-2 out or anything like that. It was a whimper as opposed to even they're punching up, they're trying. It was just an absolute. Whereas Dragons, I do agree. They would be right below Hangzhou as far as underperforming because it's they had started building momentum again. They had a couple funky matches, but I love seeing. As weird as I love seeing that Fusion is the Dragons' kryptonite. Apparently,
yeah,
it happened again 3-0, just like the beginning of the season. The same thing. So I thought that was kind of. Hangzhou was definitely my underperformer for East.
Yeah, I do think that with the Dragons, I think it was at least it was very true early on in the season. I think that they are being hurt a lot by the situation in China because apparently the internet is very bad over there, and there have been times where they've been playing on 300 ping and stuff. So I don't know if that's persisted or anything, or if that's the excuse or whatever. So I am worried that once Dragons, if that has been the case, Dragons once they actually do get back online will just be the old Dragons, and they just might take over everything anyways.
Well, and this question, how I guess the big question is, how long will it take to get there? Because even for mid-season, they're going to stay. Obviously, the whole deal is NA will be coming to Hawaii, but APAC will stay in Asia. But will they ever get a land situation? I mean, because now we're going to be going through this one where they're still going to have to be dealing with internet issues. The next possibility, I think, for them to be on LAN is Grand Finals, which they have said they want to do an international LAN event for the Grand Finals this year. Knock on wood, hopefully, whatever. But I'm trying to think, in theory, unless something really, the situation or whatever really gets better in China and Asia, maybe for the, Summer Showdown, for the regional tournament, maybe they could have a regional Asia LAN. I don't know. But if these problems I don't know if that's going to get any better for the Dragons, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. We'll have to see, won't we?
Yeah, we'll have to see. But we've talked enough about the tournament. Congratulations to Seoul and Glads. But now we have to look ahead. We have to look ahead at potentially what is coming next. And so, I have a feeling we've only had a couple, but I have a feeling we're going to get some more. Or Roster Mania incoming potentially. We're not sure. Let's take a look at the first kind of big piece of news, which was Richard's favorite team ever, but I think a big potential W. I always got to take the banner off Richard's face when I do this. I always forget it when I share the screen. When I share the screen, it just covers Richard's face. So DPay gets hired by the Vancouver Titans to come in and replace their coaching staff. So I mean, Is this universal? Is this universal good on everybody's count? Despite Richard's feelings about the lovely city of Vancouver.
I mean, I think he's more experienced than what they had. You know, their previous staff largely came out of Second Wind, right? That was the holdouts from the Second Wind acquisition. But I think he's an upgrade. But
will it be the savior though? I'm doubting it.
I mean, look, in the end, you know, DPay led the Glads to pretty much middling results, right? For a couple of years. Not bad at all by any stretch of the imagination, but you know, we're not talking about like, you know, a Joe Sakic, Steve Yzerman hockey brain or Pep Guardiola in football. Like, okay. Yeah. And now what? Because we know the team has a lot of raw talent that can pull it together. The question that you always have now is, you know, and this is why I wonder whenever you see a coaching pickup, it's like, the only way this can work is if the pitch was everyone's being utilized the wrong way. This is how you use the assets that you have. That would have to be the pitch. Otherwise, they'd have to dump the roster. It wouldn't make any sense. He must see a system. He has to. Otherwise, there's no way he will be able to find success. So that's my hunch. And I'm like, that's why I think, you know, look, if they can, their raw talent is there. I think they can get a win. I think they can do better. But my hunch is we'll see a rebuild stage and probably a few roster changes for the next round.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I've always liked about DPay is that, yes, he has been sort of hit and miss with Glads, but he's given us some memories. It's like the Great Bamboozle, for example, 2018. He was the coach.
Yes.
And there's a lot of these cute little set plays that they would do. They were probably from him. So I'd expect Titans to go, okay, we're not sort of the top tier roster or anything like that, but we have these set plays that we can catch teams out with. Mm-hmm. So I think he might lean into that a bit more. But as you say, hey, you've got a quality roster. I mean, Massa, runner up last year. Aspire, one of the breakout rookies of last year. Shockwave, we know his quality.
Amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And I've actually been impressed with Scarippa.
Yeah.
Really good. It's just a case of they haven't really been able to get it together in match. So could DPay be the answer? Only time will tell.
Yeah, I mean, like I actually rate DPay a decent amount. I know he's quite vaguely controversial within like the world of Overwatch, but I think like people also forget like Glad's actually won a stage last year. Like that's like not for nothing. And like you know, he's if you like I've hung around in his streams a couple times, and he's like very clearly a super intelligent guy about the game, and the way he's like talks about it, it's just like you're like, oh, this guy like gets it. And I think like
I should totally watch him more and copy what he says.
Yeah, it has been very interesting to see like that culture at Vancouver like transition to this team as well, because like you said, this team is much better than it was last year, but that still kind of feels like it's in that same spot. So like, and I think that a lot of that probably did come from the coaching culture around it. So I do think that this is like has to be unanimously like a good change for this team, at least in some direction, because hopefully it will change that like culture that was inset there, which is just like we're the Vancouver Titans, I guess. Like, you know,
hey
like
guys, we're here.
Yeah. So like if you're, especially for that coaching staff who's been like ground into the ground at that point, and like this is no shade on them or anything. I'm sure it was a super tough situation. Didn't have tons of money. We're making the best of what they had, but like it's like that season that they had last year is definitely going to still weigh on them from the previous year, and especially when you have like a stage like you just had as well, and like, oh, this is just the same. Like then that's just like a downward spiral. So I think getting somebody like DPay in who's very clever about the game is a very, very smart move. I'm also just quite worried because as far as I remember, they have an exceptionally hard let me actually see if I can bring that up real quick. They have an exceptionally hard strength of schedule on this this next upcoming one, you know.
I'm just bringing up the tweet on this one. Just made me like, I don't know if this is how this just made me sad. Shockwave tweeted out after the announcement, quote retweeting, "I just want to win. I just want to win." I'm like, how am I supposed to interpret this? Like, is he thinking like, hey, DPay's here, like I think maybe we could do it, or is he just like, I don't care who the staff is, whatever. I just want to damn win.
But I mean, okay, so I think this is the Vancouver's schedule for this stage. So the Glads, the Outlaws, the Reign, Dallas, Shock, and then Washington Justice, and that's like their next like 6 games. And like all credit to Deepay. I think it is going to be hard to find a win in there somewhere. They could probably find one, maybe, but and then like at that point you've lost another 6 games, and then the morale's still down and stuff. So I think like that's the real scary danger.
It's like the first year of
it could just be. It's like I think this is much better, but it's just going to be so hard for them to find their first win, I think, because like,
this will be tough. I mean, starting off against the Glads is going to be like that is
punch
in the junk. You know, that's a punch in the junk right there. But you know, jokes aside though, and ribbing aside, I think you know what you'd rather. It's good. Look, if you're going to test the system, test it against good teams. It's actually better. It hurts. It's going to suck, but that's better than
fair point.
Approaching systems, especially if you got like a little bit of look. You got to see how much you're. The cute ideas, right, can come up, and that was one of the big things that came up in the playoffs, right? These cute schoolyard tricks, they don't work sometimes, and like you can't do it, but you know you can test elements of this. It's good if you don't have an expectation of winning, not for these rounds, and it's a great way to test resilience and all the ability for the team to stick to the instructions, stick to the rules of the game, like the plan, right? Stick to the plan, and they'll be much better off.
I think there's and like I think after that crazy like run of games, there is like a much easier thing. So I think they play like Paris, New York, Justice, Outlaws, Boston, like London, like that kind of area. I think like we might see like a resurgence hopefully in this team, and at least see them get some wins, so it's like not a complete mess. And then like if they end strong, then everyone will kind of not forget that all this happened, but everyone will be like, oh, they're kind of promising at the end of the season, you know. So hopefully it works out that way.
As long as they don't have a Winston Spawn camping them on King's Row, I think they'll be fine.
All right. Well, then. Richard said all jokes aside, let's go back to jokes for a second, because the real question is actual photo of Deepay in the jersey?
No, it's Photoshop. It's 100%
horrible Photoshop job. Come on.
I feel like this happens all the time. Like,
well, no, it's always Titans. They have the worst graphics department in the league. Like, do you remember when they used
the Shockwave one was way worse? I think
that was the worst. No. What was so funny is that when they use exactly the same frame, like guys, you got to use a different base model.
Yes, please, exactly.
You know, it's like before there were all sorts of problems. Like their arms aren't the right color. They don't match their skin tones all wrong.
Yeah,
you know,
a white guy with a black guy's head who gets
it was awful.
Stuff
you
like
know?
that. Yeah.
And honestly, it's like the design style is kind of.
I think Patrick and Richard might back me up on this. Do you remember when they first debuted that Western roster with Karko and all them, and you saw the team lineup? That was creepy.
It was
that Photoshop job.
I was like,
players.
Here's why I tell folks where I'm like, this is the biggest problem with the league is that you can give them crap and people will be like, this is awesome. It's so good. Don't ever say anything bad. I'm like, it's objectively bad. Like if you deliver that graphic in any other job, in any other industry, your employment or contract would be put into question. Like that is how bad Vancouver is. That's actually that's one of the reasons I dislike them so much, because they take advantage of a fan base that is so easily satisfied with believing that like wanting to fulfill the meme, you know. But I'm like, it's your look and feel like have some basic respect and consideration for players and for the efforts and the work that's going into this. But like it's bad, but this is actually better. And like, you know, Deepay's a handsome man. He's a good looking guy. His hair looks great in the photo. He's got a great jawline. You know, it's like it works really well. But no, honestly, I think they stand a chance because they didn't before this, and it is a big thing, right? So we'll see what happens.
Point, I think we can agree they've put down the shovel for the time being. It's just
of,
are they going to fill in the hole, or are they going to dig the hole deep?
Where's the hole going? But
did you see that Excelsior thing? How they did the announcement of an announcement?
Yes.
So we don't actually know what's happening.
Stay tuned for an announcement, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, they're like week or something like that. So
or Friday or something. Nobody knows anymore. So I was gonna say, I thought we were gonna have Excel news, but we're not because we don't know what's happening.
Okay.
But yeah.
Fair enough. But in a news that we do know is happening, so in the beginning of what I imagine is going to be maybe not a ton, but a few roster switches heading into this next stage. The Charge say goodbye to Molly, who was one of their support players. And I know Plex, you had a couple of thoughts on it. So how do you take this?
Well, this is my big thing. they've been starting with Faraway recently.
Mhm.
On Chengdu, Faraway was the Zenyatta specialist. It's like he came in to play with Amon and sort of like in poke comps, things like that. Molly could do the Moira and the Ana, and Bap as needed.
Mhm.
So it just feels weird. I mean, I get you don't want to release the player you've just signed. That
Right.
I can appreciate, but Molly to me is the more versatile because Faraway is serviceable, but compared to the other Anas you see him up against, like Izayaki, for example, creative. If you were to rate flex supports, I wouldn't put Faraway in the top of the league or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Molly, he sort of like can be hit and miss. Like he tends to vanish sometimes in games, but he's at least better than Faraway. So it's a weird one, especially since if you're looking at the patch notes for the next beta, it's the one that the teams are going to be playing on. There's a high chance that Zenyatta will be better. So that makes sense of Faraway being the player. But what if it turns out there's going to be down the line a Moira meta?
Sure.
Can Faraway play the Moira?
Sure.
Or if they go back to Ana, then so yeah, it's a weird one, but I just feel like I don't know.
So I made a little joke in our private chat before this, but I mean, because and I could be wrong on some of the specifics on this one, but with all the drama with Hunters, didn't Charge pick up some of the castaways from that?
Yeah, Eveltol, they changed his name to Xerneas.
Right. And is there a chance it would buy Molly hello Yveltal?
I don't know. They seem to be he's sort of set on this back line from my perspective. I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. I just hope that they at some point get a main tank to replace Rio. Or Krong sort of learns the main tank.
Yeah, you're gonna have to. You got to have a Winston player.
It's not just that.
Winston player.
Rio has sort of dipped over the years. Like he came to the league, was actually pretty good. Then over time, he just sort of slowly but surely, and as other players sort of picked up in quality and things like that, Charge stuck with Rio, and I think to myself, you're so loyal to this guy, and I think to myself, just bring someone in. Come on. I mean, you've got Krog, who's actually, if you're looking at the two players, Krog looks a lot better.
Sure. The other question is too, well, not question, but to dip into the rumor mill, it's already been rumored, which again, let's put that out there. Rumor. The free agency will not last long as it's LA Valiant has already had some interest in Molly. Because they need, any more players because they already have 16 players.
Yeah.
I think they need another DPS, actually.
Yeah, no kidding. But it'll be interesting. So I guess this is more of a jumping off point. And we'll just touch on this really quick before our last topic. But what teams, and this goes for APAC, this goes for NA, what teams do you see making some similar switch ups in the next week or two, heading into the next stage? Like, what team jumps out to you? Someone's like, yeah, I see either a switch or a release, etc. Who jumps to mind?
Well, the first team that springs to mind is New York because they need an extra player.
Yes,
I mean they've got the minimum 6, but obviously they're a full Korean roster. I mean they only got Vulcan, as good as he is, because they needed to hit the league minimum. So I think they need to find that extra player, especially he's like a fresh set of eyes.
Yep.
Someone to come in and sort of lift morale. So
I mean, obviously they just got Gesture, right? Which I think is a guiding force.
Yeah, I think he needs time, right? Gesture obviously needs time. You're not going to make an instant change. I think that's a really good thing. New York has a lot of issues, though, right? I mean, even if you take a look at the way the organization is, and I get to say this as somebody who saw them at their peak, right? Like I always say, a dead giveaway of how an org is doing is take a look at how much focus they're putting on content and what that content is. What are they actually doing? What's being built up? And like realistically, it's like, if you take a look at it, they're going for so many cheap, sort of short, bad meme pieces of crap these days. Like this is a team that was the most organized, structured, and best storyteller in the league. And now they're down to like, we're going to bait you by telling you Libero has a new role. And they just like drop in to say hi to the guy, right? They dox the entire team by showing the entire fucking street that these guys are on. I'm like, and they show multiple angles. So you can't be wrong. You can't be on the wrong street in Brooklyn now. Right? Like it's just sloppy. So it makes you wonder if this is how bad they are. Okay, how legitimately bad they have fallen. Okay, they're using footage from other people's events and not even attributing it. Like that's the funniest thing. Like you can't actually do that. So really, I should be asking them for a royalty because it's my footage. But anyway, more importantly, it's no, seriously, they threw in like 5 DV parties like to show like how great the fans are. I'm like, dudes, that wasn't even your event. Like, please. Come on. And that's what I think is really funny, though, because when you see that in a content plan, and I know how they were really good at coming up with this because they got to know the players, their stories, their origin series. You understood why the team was built the way it was.
Sure.
So when I see something like this, it makes me wonder if you have even a remotely similar approach to how, or maybe like for the team, if you're not supporting, this is a foreign roster. Like I've seen some players come from Asia before where, you know, they're not given a lot of support or guidance, a lot of flexibility, freedom to like live an actual life outside of just play the game. And that's a really crappy way to ply your trade. There's a reason I brought housewarming food to Roki and showed him how to like, you know, get around town because nobody else did. And that sucks. And you will never get your head in the game. So
yeah, that'll affect performance. That'll affect
it will affect performance. And that's the thing. I think New York probably has deeper issues. And the thing I don't know, Plex, they do need that roster enrichment. I have a hunch, and this is going to happen across the league, that people are going full budget right now, right? They're still holding back their franchise payments. I think my hunch is that people are trying to basically spend absolutely nothing right now on these teams. And that I think really sucks for the players and the fans and everybody else who is so fully invested in trying to create success and amazing things, right? Because they are now held back by the reality that, well, now it's become purely a fiscal reality. And I think that sucks, right? And I was beating up on the content of it, but they might be facing the same challenges.
Sure.
Who knows how much double, triple, quadruple duty people are playing.
I totally agree that like there's a ton of teams who could pick up somebody and should and
just
and all
one,
this.
One
but I just like, but like I do not, at least like in like somewhere in like New York styles here, I don't have faith that they would do that. Like they wouldn't be signing Vulcan to sit on their bench because he was around if they were willing to invest to like, you know, even get just like one more player, because that team has great pieces, but they're all just kind of like disjointed and there's no glue between any of them.
Yeah, that's a good way to
describe
it.
Like it really feels like they need like one kind of like great caliber player and like that team could be unlocked.
Yeah.
But like I think they would have done it already if they were going to do that, you know?
Yeah, like Paris is moving. They're definitely not adding anybody to the mix, right? Yeah. They're going to just ride through the season and get ready for next year. That's basically what, because why you're literally not.
Yeah, you're literally moving. Why would you? Yeah, why would
the entire principle of localization was to like try to build and support like localized infrastructure, which is what we need. It gives you a balance because that's actually how you make real revenue that's profitable. But they're like, peace, thanks, and so long, and thanks for all the fish. Yeah, like they're just out, you know?
I think that's probably what happened with Molly as well. Like, I think, like, it was like they brought in Fairway and we're like, all right, we need to upload somebody. And like, that's probably literally just what happened with Molly.
Yeah, exactly.
And like,
Psycho with Mirror.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I think that, you know, as much as I love to sit here and be like, you know, Houston Outlaws should go after a great like A to S tier tank to like really unlock their potential stuff.
Right.
I don't know if they're going to go do that. Like, I think Houston is like one of the teams who might potentially actually go do that. There are like our teams that are out there and are willing to spend and stuff. Houston kind of like ride that middle ground of like kind of willing to spend, but I also think that we have a player like Pelican who's probably getting paid a fair amount of money. So who knows at this point?
Yeah.
But like, you know, there are definitely teams who are willing to invest and others that aren't. But I think the teams that are willing to invest are the ones that are already great anyways.
Yeah.
So, like,
and that's the thing. And we're seeing that. And that's why, like, I feel like the Glads are one of the few teams, like, actually, like, they're in it to win it. And I respect that. And I think that's awesome. And
I think Shock's the same way. And like,
and like I said, I know they had a botch, you know, over the weekend, but they're still there. They're still in it.
Yeah.
Other teams, not so much, right? I think actually Toronto's doing a great job of managing how you utilize the resources for what they're doing and what they have. You know, that's actually a really good spot to be in. It's something you can build from. But it's one of those cases where we've got to accept that this is a league and a level of competition where, like I always tell, I don't think you have to love winning. I think you have to hate losing. And when we see everyone's like, oh, it's okay. Oh, we're friends. Oh, you're my bestie opposing social media manager on other team. Like, no, I hate you. I hate you people. I hate your city and everything you stand for. No, but like more importantly, it's like you got the thing is you're not going to get any better. There's no incentive to win because the system stays the same regardless.
You do got to get uncomfortable. You got to get uncomfortable.
Viewers. You get the same amount of social media engagement. So some partner or sponsor is happy because they got the likes.
You stay still.
That's why it's been super refreshing to see Hunter getting out there in front of a camera and just trash talking other teams. Like I think that's super healthy for the thing. Like I think there is like a level, obviously, to a point where it's disrespect, but it's very obvious with him. Like he goes on and he's just like trash talking Jake, who is also very famous for trash talking. He's very mellowed out. I was thinking like, oh, that could be a crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dude, it's I'm
not getting involved in this. But
come at us. We're gonna kick your ass,
and we're gonna settle it in the ring.
We're gonna settle it on
land.
At
times, it could blow right back in your face. Looking at you, dog man.
Which is great.
That happened to Outlaws last year with Washington Justice, and they were.
But that's awesome, though. But that's
that's great.
That's great sports stuff. Absolutely.
But there's a way to do it. I was like, you can do things that are just offensive and disrespectful, and that's not trash talk. That's being an asshole. I think there's a huge difference there. But there's a level of complacency that you can sense in the league right now, and it's for so many reasons. It's for myriad reasons. There's no one. But there's a point of complacency, and it's a challenge because that complacency can't build great competition. And kudos and props to the teams that are driving it forward, because when you see them working hard and putting that system together, it's not that you just get a winning team, but we get to see an incredible esport. The Gladiators gave us incredible Overwatch deep within the system that the game provides and showed us what it can be. And I'm so happy they did that. And I think everybody should be happy, regardless of who you were supporting. Seeing what they did is what I think everybody needs to see, because the question is, for orgs in general, are you going to step up and be that kind of org and create a system that allows a team to do that? I think that's the gauntlet that's been dropped. And I just hope we do see more.
Yeah.
We'll probably have to see a lot more viewers, though. Or at least some pocketbooks open up.
Yeah,
for sure.
But at the end of the day, there's always various ways to build a roster. But you look at Florida Mayhem, they literally went through the trial system. I mean, Checkmate went through the trial system twice because he got released. Then he was like, okay, I'm gonna do this again.
Try it again, yeah, and then
back. Which I always respect Checkmate because he put in the work to because he went through that twice, and then they actually said that they would go for mechanically skilled players because they don't know what they're walking into. Yeah. And it shows. Back that up with a coach like Gunbar, who has a history of developing good rookie talent and blending them with experienced heads. Like, for example, with Mayhem right now, they've got Arnamo, they've got XC, they've got Kariv. Just to give you an idea. Yeah. So I think Mayhem will come good. I mean, this is not me being biased. This is me putting on my neutral hat for a second. They'll come good because of Gunbar's history.
Yep, I agree with you. I think Mayhem have a ton of. They've got all the pieces. Put it this way. Look, every team now has this run under their belt. It's what you're going to do with it. What do you learn? And then that's the other half. Can you make it happen with what you have, or do you need more pieces? And that's going to be the next stage of who makes it out. Like I said, I'm always be openly biased to Toronto, but they've got a lot of good pieces. They just got to not go hang out in alleyways and get beaten on the back of the head with a baseball bat.
Just go right instead of left.
Yeah. Why do they always turn left? Sorry.
It's a Canadian thing.
Zoolander syndrome.
Yeah. Right. Well, on that note, that's a good, talk about a little trash talk. We want to talk about, we're talking about Toronto. We want to talk a little trash. Let's round out our show today with, if you watch the show, one of our things is we all try to predict like match results and stuff like that. And we put a little something on the line. If you get it wrong, you face a a little punishment or something of the like. So this weekend, we didn't have a match of the week because it was tournament, so we didn't know how it was all going to fall out. Well, it so happened that Toronto and Houston faced each other in the lower bracket round one. And so on the spot, we decided, say, you know what? We're going to put our punishment on the line between me and Richard. Whoever makes it out of the lower bracket round one.
I'd like to point out, I was the one who floated the idea.
Plex, throw it out there. I love the
so
idea.
good.
Great idea, because we were
Great
both
idea.
there. We were both hyped up. We were both, go back. Wait, you can't go back and watch the VOD because I have to delete it. But you should. I will clip it for you. We were in rare form on that game. But as you all may know, the Houston Outlaws, led by Richard Creation Mango.
You vandalized Mango.
Yes, Patrick, he's like this all the time.
Led the team.
It works for me. Like,
you're all good with it.
But I have baby Mango.
Yeah, baby Mango, Bango.
Mango.
So
Let's not go there.
Our punishment was that, well, first we made Richard buy a Houston Outlaws skin for his main hero, which is Brig. So he's swinging Brig around in black.
I did
and
kick
green.
the crap out of some team in quick
Really?
play with my Houston Brig. There was so much crouching going on. I was like, no, I'm taking this out.
Wow,
on
you're
you.
really channeling season 2,
Yes.
Jake.
Yes. All of
With a
it.
little bit of yucky in the mix for the sounds of it.
All of it. So so our punishment this week, so that was kind of thrown on top of it. So the loser had to buy the opposing team's skin for their main hero, and then what will happen now, you had to cut a scathing promo praising the other team after that loss. So without, I'm not going to have any distractions here. Let's pull this away. Everybody, I'm going to take us off camera for a little bit. I'm going to leave Richard alone. He has the
Oh
script.
God. What do you
This is all
yeah.
Richard. You get to go in 5. I'm going to pull myself out too.
Gonna get clipped
5,
so fast.
4, 3, 2.
Hi, I'm Richard. You may know me as Great Root Bear on social media. What you may not know is that I suffer from a terrible condition. It's called Outlaw Fever. It's a rare condition where my misplaced faith in the Toronto Defiant to defeat the clearly superior Houston Outlaws causes my skin to break out in green and black hives. I had a severe attack this past weekend during the lower bracket round 1 of the Kickoff Clash. Despite watching the Defiant walk into what is now known as Wayne or Crime Alley in Midtown and get obliterated over and over and over, I tried to rationalize a Toronto win. But it was not to be, and my blood flowed green for the next several hours. Take this lesson from me, kids. Do not doubt Don Tank. Do not doubt Pigheart. Do not doubt Iris Lastro supremacy. Do not doubt Merit. And do not ever doubt the handsome guy Diff. This has been a public service announcement by Great Root Bear. Ante up and yee-haw!
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not
Getting
gonna lie,
flipped to
I was
shit,
laughing
isn't
my
it?
head off in the background there.
Oh, there's so many terrible clips. You know what's going to happen? That's going to be like, people are going to just overdub random sounds now. It's like, I have a terrible condition known as sweaty boob rash.
You should just slowly have like the clip of Pelican winning on the Coliseo, just slowly fading in over what you're saying. Just
like
Pelican completely
like
clutching
Mr.
the
Burns at
entirety.
it's at Camp Krusty. It's like, and now your camp. It's like your camp manager, Mr. Black. Everyone pay attention to Mr. Black.
Damn right.
And I should point out that Richard's got to put that on his social media.
Yes, I will
and
clip
keep
it
there for a week.
I will clip it, and you got to pin it to your Twitter for the next
Oh
week.
shit! I forgot about that.
That is the final stake in the coffin.
No.
As soon as it goes live, everybody
Outlaws will
either
retweet
watching
that,
or listening has to like, retweet,
oh yeah, please help
hold our
us.
yards. We've got to really get it out there.
I'll get a clip on this one for sure. But other than that, so that's our show for today. I want to say thank you, of course, as always. Richard, Great Root Bear, Plexomatic for always joining me. And then a special thank you to Patrick for jumping in and adding to the conversation. Really appreciate you joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We'll have to do this again for sure. So that same deal, everybody. Shill time. So go ahead. If you are listening to this on Wednesday or whatever, please like, subscribe, comment on the YouTube channel and whatever podcast platform you prefer. Spotify, Apple Podcasts being the biggest platforms that we're available on. It all helps push this show out. It's a brand new show. We're trying to get it going. So do all that fun nonsense. And if you haven't, go seek it out on YouTube, on Spotify, on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, to help us put on the show. Leave a comment. We love to hear from you guys. And we might even take a couple of your comments on the air if they're poignant and interesting and or hilarious enough. So until the next time, guys, we will be back next week to preview the first round of qualifiers and matchups heading into the mid-season madness tournament. Where are these teams going to go? Who's going to glow up? Who's going to dive down even further? But until then, take care of yourselves, everybody, and we will see you next week. Take care.
Bye.
All right, that was our show. I'll cut there. Thanks, guys. That was fun.
Awesome.
Patrick,
it was awesome to meet you.
Yeah, you too, guys. It's been like because I work in like traditional games and like I feel like esports and trad games like it's kind of like a little bit like it's very rare. I'm always tweeting about Overwatch League, but nobody follows me because I'm on because I talk about Overwatch League. It's kind of like they follow me in spite of it. So it's always nice to like have a second to like actually get out there and talk about it a little bit. That's something that's like my quiet passion that nobody cares about.
I think it's awesome, Patrick. I'd love to. Matt, can you shoot the contact info and all that stuff?
Yeah.
Patrick, I'd love to hear more about what you do in traditional games. I actually just started up at a studio stateside, so just love to pick your brain a little bit about what to expect. I got to head up the marketing department, so
absolutely,
awesome. Listen, folks, I got to run.
Yeah,
awesome,
absolutely, buddy.
Awesome as always. And then I'll keep my eye out for that clip and I'll get it up there. I'll make sure I tag Houston. That's a really biggest one because I really want to give those guys the rub.
Both teams.
Yeah, I'll tag both
teams.
The rub. Yeah, give them a rub.
The root bear rub.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look how cute this one is. Look at his little dingly legs.
It is better. Oh, I'm glad you said legs.
Oh, look at his little dingle.
Look at his little dingle.
He's just so happy to be there.
He is.
Was it you called Winston's weapon the little tickler?
It's the electric tickler.
The electric tickler.
Yeah.
He just goes, oh yeah, tickle, tickle, tickle. Oh yeah, tickle, tickle, tickle. It's like really creepy. Giant monkey coming to tickle you with.
Especially if you use that voice line over and over.
Right.
No, and then you follow it up with like, I'm a scientist. Tickle, tickle, tickle.
Or the best one, did somebody say peanut butter? Tickle, tickle, tickle.
Oh god. All right, folks.
All right, everybody.
I'll see you folks in.
All right. Take care, everybody.